Hello friends, and welcome to episode 202 of the Noclip Crewcast. Happy Half-Life to everyone. Happy Half-Life, Jesse. How are you doing? Who's your favorite Half-Life character?
Kleiner.
Good choice. Why? What do you like?
Great voice. Funny.
It's true. Both of those are true. Frank, your favorite?
I guess it would be Dog, because I just love throwing crap and having him catch it. Yeah.
Okay, and the most anime character there is in the game, so matches, I guess. Jeremy, what about yourself?
I like the G-Man. He's kind of got I feel like he represents a very 90s X-Files vision of sci-fi that I really love.
That's true. You gotta love a G-Man. My favorite is probably Laszlo, the greatest mind of our generation, but sadly he is no longer with us due to antlions. Thank you to everyone who checked out the Secret Tape documentary that we produced for Valve about Half-Life 2. GG to the whole team. We did a great job, everyone, pulling that together. It was a fucking 6-week nightmare for all of us to produce that thing. Very short time period. There are 2 shots in the doc that I forgot to put
Just
color
don't say
on.
anything. Just don't.
So just
you outed
just
yourself.
go find them.
You're
It's
in
like,
the
where's
clear.
Waldo? It's like, where's Wally? Just like, see if you can find them. They're both in the first fucking 5 minutes.
That's the worst place they could be.
Oh, let me tell you, when I was reviewing the last version that I was already uploading to Valve's YouTube channel, I was like, ooh, 2 in the first few minutes. There better not be any more. Thankfully, there wasn't. And people seem to really like it. It's done like 2.25 million views in a couple of days. So that was pretty cool to see. We had such a great response to last year's Half-Life 1 documentary that it's very heartwarming to see even more people talking it up and shouting about it and tweeting it out and leaving really nice comments. Yeah, it was really cool. So that was the doc that I couldn't talk about last week, obviously, although many people, because it went up later than planned, because both me and the folks at Valve were sort of scrambling to get some last minute stuff done. The podcast did go up several hours before this, so I'm glad I didn't say what it was, but yeah, a lot of folks basically figured it out. Yeah, so that's that. What are we up to? Is that 5 Half-Life docs? I think
Black Mesa, the original one, Half-Life 1 and 2 on Valve's channel.
And then we did the Ravenholm thing in Arcane.
Oh, yeah, that counts.
Like, that kind of counts, right?
I'd also count the Counter-Strike, because that's Half-Life
Oh,
universe.
yeah.
That's true. Dust 2.
true.
Yep.
All right, that's 6.
Fuck, man. Half-Life, Valve can't even do 3. We've done 6. Like, come on. Hurry up, fuckers.
Half-Life 6 leaked.
Could you imagine we'll all be fucking long dead before Half-Life 6 comes out? I'm still waiting for Dust 3, to be honest. Like, come on. Pick it out. Somebody must have made a Dust 3.
Oh, yeah.
There's definitely
I've seen a Dust 3 in a browser before.
like a fan
Like server
made
browser. Yeah, it's gotta
Dust
be.
3. Yeah.
Dave was also working on, I talked to him a little bit about this, but it didn't make the cut. He was working on there's this thing called waveform collapse, which is like, I think that's what it's called. It's WFC. I feel like that's what it stands for, where you can create like chunks of levels and they generate the adjacent chunks based on context. It's like Townscaper. Townscaper uses this.
Oh, yeah.
And he was generating a project called Dust Infinite, I believe.
Oh my God.
And it was just like generative Dust 2 style levels.
That's like a nightmare.
Yeah.
If you're like,
Yeah,
you're, like,
a stress
walking
stream.
around.
You're like running
Yes.
through dust and it's like unfamiliar, but you recognize every texture.
You're on like bomb site W.
Yeah, Omega.
Yeah, you run out of alphanumeric, the bomb sites and they start just having sigils on them you don't understand. You could make a pretty good like horror game out of that. Yeah.
There is a oh god, I wish I could remember what it's called. There is a game that is like a weird art game that takes place in Dust. That's like the last server that's up or something. I can't. Fuck. I'll try to find it during this podcast.
Man, you went deep in the Dust hole.
Yeah, I did.
That documentary.
I got dusty as hell.
Jesus. I'm deep in the Soul Reaver hole because you were working on that edit for a long time when we were. Sorry, not for a long time. You're working on the edit while we were away for a long time, and I took over from it just a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, it's been fun putting that one together. So we're gonna get that one out soon enough. It'll either be the end of this month or it'll be actually just looking at the days. It'll probably be the start of December, right before that remaster collection. Comes out. And it was just announced actually that Raina Audron, who is a really big name within the Soul Reaver community, is the director of those remasters.
Oh, wow.
Which is, we interviewed her for this documentary, and it's something that we knew about. So that's pretty cool.
Well deserved. I've never heard I've heard a lot of people speak passionately about Soul Reaver. I've never heard anyone speak with like the authority and informed nature that she speaks with in the interview. It's ridiculous. She just like exudes Soul Reaver passion with every word. Yeah. It's crazy.
It's awesome. It's there's a lot of really cool, fun community stuff in there. Stuff about the archive, the remaster, the future of the franchise. There's a lot in there. It should be a fun doc. I'm excited to get out in the next couple of weeks. But we're not here to talk about Soul Reaver, not quite yet. We're here to talk about a bunch of games that have come out, and also to shout out our incredible Battle Pass holders, which I'm going to do backwards again, just for fun. Ryson, Tohir Tiliev, Jacob Godserve, George Sakotis, Alex Sharp, Alex Couchet. I did those guys the same order I always do. I just can't keep the Alexes. I can't mix up my Alexes. Sorry, guys. Zachary Snader, Cameron Ladd, Eric Hamilton Schneider, Jonathan Kremen, Forrest Pruitt, Tim Robinson, Ewan Nate, Aaron L. White, Pez, Sven Huster, Dave McGarry, Tucker Morgan, Marco Rojas, James Brown, Richard Matherson, Arno, Harry Flanagan. I love Harry Flanagan's name. Such a good name. That's like a character in like a fucking, I don't know, Irish regional pub movie. Oh, Harry Flanagan's come in again.
They're always making those movies.
Sitting down next to Eamon Slattery and Ian Swanson. Thank you to all of our incredible Battle Pass holders, the ones I said in a dodgy rural Irish accent, and the ones that I did not. Thank you for supporting our work over at patreon.com/noclip, where we make documentaries that are not sellout ones like the Half-Life 2 one. But you know what?
If you're gonna sell out,
you know, you might as well make a pretty cool documentary. We got 2 more Secret Tape projects coming out in the next couple of months. One next month and another one in early January. The one in early January I'm excited to talk about at some stage. Recently they put up like an update on this game, and the top comment on Our Games with regard to this was, man, someone needs to make a documentary about what the fuck is going on with this game, which we are. So I'm excited to get that one out in the future. But first, that was me putting in a break for Jesse. So now I've gotten on that.
Perfect. Well done.
I've called it out, unfortunately, now. So it's not as smooth, but I'll do my best. That's what I've been trying to do. First, we're going to talk about some games we're playing. I've played 2 new games, but I've been talking too much at the top of this podcast, so I'm going to throw this one over to Jesse. Which of these 2 do you want to talk about first? Probably the second one, because then Jeremy can talk about it.
Sure, we can do that. Yeah, let's
do it.
That makes the most sense. Yeah, let's talk about Threshold, the new fun game from the first game, I guess, from solo developer. What's the name again? Pataloon?
Pataloon, yeah.
Pataloon.
I'm too scared to pronounce his very French name.
Yeah, apologies.
Should we take a swing at it? I'll go Julien Evier.
All right.
Julien Evier.
Yeah. I go Julien Evier.
Okay.
You know, I would pronounce it exactly like both of you did, so it feels redundant for me to even try.
Apologies, Julian. The new game, Threshold. It's very good.
New game.
Hot new indie. Everyone's talking about it.
I'm starting to wonder if it is new. You've been saying new so many times. I'm starting to
Sorry,
doubt.
it's so here's the thing. This is an indie horror game that is focused on you doing repetitive tasks, and the game takes about an hour. It is narratively very interesting. There's a lot of like weird themes and messages and ideas encased in an hour, 60 minutes ish of gameplay that's roughly doing the same 3 or 4 tasks over and over. And there's like story stuff that comes from it. It's hard to talk about, I think, because to say some things would give away the experience. It's an hour long. If I could talk about it, I'll say what it made me feel by the end of it, or at least what it made me feel through the process. So like,
this is a first-person game, should be mentioned.
Yes. So this is a first-person
basic
3D game where you're walking through. You play as an employee for this company, quote unquote, where your task is to keep the train running, and that's it. Follow the pace that the train is going. You're given some tasks that are straightforward, like picking up the garbage or doing this. Your manager, who's there when you get down there for the first time, you're starting your first day on the job, gives you some tasks to do, and you do them and you perform them straightforward. And then very quickly, there's like a layer to this that I didn't realize was there from the demo. The demo for this game came out, I think, a couple months ago. It was more of a mood piece.
Hard to do a demo on a 1-hour game.
Exactly, right? I thought that was like, the demo was going to be very different from the full game, but it's not super different. It's basically just the same space, but repacked, and sort of, you get the idea quicker in the demo. But this full version, again, it's very short, but it's doing a lot with that time to get across the idea of like worker. It's like one of those workplace horror games. It's like Mouthwashing or Still Wakes the Deep, which I also played very recently because it's on your Game of the Year list, Danny. A very good game.
Oh, yeah. And also, this is from the same publisher, Mouthwashing, right?
Yeah, Mouthwashing is from Critical Reflex as well.
And Buckshot Roulette. They are really cornered the market on this fucking look of game.
Yeah, this aesthetic of like this dithered, low poly kind of like, this one especially, Threshold especially, pulls into the like squiggly texture look of the PS1 a lot more than the other games have. Not quite Arctic eggs, like warbly texture, which they also published, I think, right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, they got a lock on that look. You're right. But yeah, in terms of the way this made me feel, because I'm saying it's like you're doing repetitive tasks, and the big sort of like thing that made me go, oh shit, this is like, there's something going on here. I could feel things right away is, so like, the core of the game, when you're not doing the tasks, is you're maintaining a breath meter. Basically, it's invisible. You can't see it, but the screen kind of starts to crack a little bit. You have to keep up your breath because the place that you're in is so exhausting to be in. Imagine working. And the way that you get your breath back up is you get these glass canisters with air in them, and you have to bite the glass canister.
The noise is so fucking terrible every time.
It plays this crunching, disgusting, you can hear the gums being cut by the glass sound. And you have to do that a lot. You lose your air very quickly. Your tasks, actually, the way that you like interface with the train or you interface with different things in the world is you blow this whistle that your boss gives you, but you have to like take a deep breath and then blow into the whistle in the game, which hurts your breath meter. Right. And you get the breath canisters by performing tasks. So it's like a video game Skinner box where all you're doing is getting to keep playing the video game. And as someone who has worked a lot of like very, very remedial jobs and like just repeating things over and over and over again, I could not. It was like that bit in Not the Vanishing of Ethan Carter, What Remains of Edith Finch, the fishmonger scene, or like the one where they're like the guy just runs the factory where you. Oh, okay. Well, you would. This bit is like very cool. Frank's nodding because Frank knows what's up. Just very similar to that scene, the sort of like workplace horror, the monotony and the way that plays into your own feelings on life and like how that could destroy your brain. But then there's also like bigger themes that, again, I don't want to get into. It's an hour-long game. You should play it. Yeah. I don't know. The zone of interest was a big thing I was thinking about while I was playing this game. If you know
interesting.
That movie. So yeah. I don't know. This is big for me. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on this? How are you feeling on Threshold?
Yeah, I really liked it. It's definitely short. So I only say that because sometimes people will be like, is this game, is it worth the price? I think it's worth the experience for sure. I just want to caveat that it is a very short game. Yeah. I finished my run through in 50 minutes. I did have a death at one point though. So I don't know if it's probably a little bit higher than that, but yeah, it's very like, it kind of slowly transforms into a horror game, which I liked. I like that it doesn't. I kind of didn't know what type of game. I was vaguely creeped out, but I felt like it kept its cards close to its chest, which I really liked. I really like a piece of media that like doesn't immediately go, "Oh, this is horror." Let's sort this neatly into the box of horror. In fact, there's a couple good jokes in there. They're very, very dry. I feel like it's not too spoilery to tell one joke is. They refer to the fact that you get free dental care here, which is very funny because you're constantly biting into glass canisters. So it's like, yeah, it's a very sort of just like dry, satirical, but very straightforward. Like it never is like wink and a nod. It plays it so straight. I like the oxygen thing as well. It feels sufficiently oppressive without being too much of a chore. But that's not to say that it's not like an insane chore. You're kind of, because the main mechanic that you use to speed up the train is blowing into a whistle. It takes a full lungful to blast the whistle into the thing to keep the train running. And by the time you blast the whistle, you're out of oxygen. So you're like hoarding air canisters in your inventory and hoarding the tickets that let you get more air canisters. And you're kind of constantly becoming this turns you into this psychotic pack rat. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting. It also has multiple endings, so it clearly is a game that's worth replaying. And the other thing I would like to replay it for is when you start the game up, it asks you what country you're from,
yes.
And it says, so in the game there's a flag hanging. There was an American flag because I chose USA, but it also says that the country impacts difficulty, and I'm so curious the fuck that means.
Yeah, right? Like it does, it explicitly says this is not you picking your language for the game. This is you picking the difficulty, which is very strange. I don't know what that means. I picked Canada and I assumed that meant that the gum stuff was free, that my dental was covered. And I assumed for you there was a fee. You had an extra mechanic, but I guess not.
Yeah, they billed me.
Yeah, there's not much more to say about it, but it is really cool. I think it's fun. I think fun is the wrong word. I keep saying that, but I do think this is the kind of shit that I like going to video games for, when they take what I understand and what you're willing to accept about video games and subverting it on a mechanical level. Like there are some moments in this game where it does what you expect it to do, and then very quickly is actually just kidding. So I thought that was interesting to see. And like Jeremy said, there's a bunch of different endings, so it's worth going through at least more than once. Also, to your point about the breathing thing, there's a character that you can talk to, redacted. I will not say anything more. And you can ask about that, why do I have to bite a glass canister to breathe? And the character is there's scientific reasons for it. We could give you a gas or an air tank, but that would be hard. Plus,
they're it's dangerous to have air canisters throughout, which is so funny because you're constantly biting into glass.
But it's okay. Insane. You get dental care.
The only other thing I wanted to say about Threshold is that I think it does something that is kind of similar to mouthwashing, even though it's a very different type of game, which is that it's it's like a stage play, is how I was talking about mouthwashing, except this is less characters talking and more just you're in this one confined environment playing out every interaction. And it is interesting to see how much mileage can be got out of just this. It's essentially just a big hallway with a train running through it. But yeah, it's a very cool game. Highly recommend checking it out. Very short, bite-sized experience.
Threshold, $8.99 currently on Steam, $1 off. You can also get it in a pack with our good friend Mouthwashing. I can't tell the price because I'm logged in, and it's actually, I don't think I've ever seen this before. It's deleting Mouthwashing from the bundle. So it's just selling me the bundle with one game in it, which is for less than the cost of the game on its own. So if you want to buy it for $8.09 and you already own Mouthwashing, get the bundle, I guess. Interesting quirk of the Steam store. Maybe it's an error, I'm not sure. Thresholds, yes, check it out. God, that Critical Reflex, man. They're
on fire.
They are. You can follow publishers on Steam, right?
Yep.
That's one to follow, I guess. Another game from Europe, I guess. Further east from our good friends. I forget where are they based now? Hungary, was it? Our good friends who were originally in Kyiv, GSC Game World, they have released Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl. It is out. The reviews are out. I laughed so hard when I read the GameSpot reviews. Of course, I scrolled down to the bottom and checked what the score was, and it was 7 out of 10, and it was a really good game. The combat with the mutants is bad, and it's got technical problems, and I was like, yep, sounds like a Stalker game. So this is the perfect sequel to a Stalker, according to GameSpot. Yeah, I've played maybe 2 hours of Stalker 2. I fucking love Stalker 2. This feels like, I think it was the first time I heard the PDA sound go off, the little diddly thing that's from all those games, and I was like, oh, we're back, baby. This is the good stuff. It takes place in, I actually don't know where it's more in the future than maybe all of the previous Stalkers. I'm not quite sure. You're sort of a fish out of water at the start. There's a sort of a prologue level where you go in and you're doing a specific mission. You're breaking into the zone. Stalker, if you've never played it, takes place in and around the sort of general Chernobyl area. It's a mixture of first-person shooter and like fantastical horror, maybe. The world around it has created mutated people and animals and stuff like that, but also it has created these sort of semi-proto-radioactive, mysterious entities that can basically create fire or electricity or any number of weird physics-based I guess traps almost that you have to avoid. There's a sort of a spooky nature to them. You're not quite sure if these anomalies are sentient or not. They sometimes have, I don't know, facets of them that feel sentient, but a lot of the time, some do more than others, let's say. And then outside of that, it's sort of like it's weird explaining what Stalker is, but I guess it's been a long time. But it's like a single player sort of survivor FPS. Like, you do have to eat, you do have to really take care of radiation and stuff like that. Your engagements in firefights are, pretty high, quick time to die. You can't get shot all that much in these games. You have bleeding, you do bandages, you have to use bolts on the anomalies to see what they're up to. It's sort of a thinking person's survival narrative linear first person shooter.
I'm out.
And yeah, it's ticking all the boxes. Like, it definitely is a game that probably needs another little optimization pass. I suspect that they are going to be patching this game a lot over the next couple of weeks, so I'm not particularly bothered about that. It's the first time in a long while that I felt like, and I played Cyberpunk pretty decently on my PC, but Stalker 2 has some trouble. I've been bringing down the specs a little bit to try and retain some decent frame rate on it. But it feels very much like a Stalker game. It feels like a high quality, high production value Stalker game. I almost immediately turned off the English language version of the dialogue. I really liked the English language stuff in the previous games, but it was English through a Ukrainian accent. Unfortunately, everyone in this game sounded American to me. It's the same reason I hated like some Disney movies when I was a kid, because I was like, why the fuck does Aladdin sound like he's from America? And like, I was a child. So I think it's a problem specifically for people who grew up in like the UK and Ireland, because we speak English natively and obviously care about the accent. So I think it's like, maybe it doesn't hit as bad if you're American. I suspect that's why they did this, is for like the American audience, which would be pretty big. So I swapped over to Ukrainian. I'm reading the subtitles, which is very fun, very immersive and cool. And yeah, I've really been enjoying it. The shooting is interesting. The combat with the soldiers I like. The quest design and stuff is very much like Stalker, but with a higher quality polish. So you're going up and talking to people, doing dialogue options. It feels super real and legit and gritty, and you can die super easily, and it's scary and fucked up things happen. And yeah, I'm super, super into it. I'm so excited. I've been enjoying going off the beaten path, exploring empty buildings. It's just like, I've been playing for 2 hours and I'm like, I am going to be playing this for the rest of the year. Like, this is my game. I've really, really been digging it.
Actually, that's part of what I wanted to ask about, was the exploration, because I don't know much about Stalker. I've seen like clips in other people's video essays. You describing it is the most I've heard about the game, like actually, apart from people saying it's great. If exploring and seeing the environments and like the structures, these big sort of rusty, rotten buildings, is the appeal, what exactly are you doing in them? Is it just exploring them and seeing what's going on? Is there narrative stuff that you can find inside of them, or characters? What's going on there?
So, if you've never played a Stalker game, they are essentially the closest proxy would be something like an Elder Scrolls game, or or a Fallout game. Like it's a big open world map. You can go anywhere as long as you're able to get there. One of the biggest impediments to that is radiation. There are areas of the game, like water, for instance, that is particularly radioactive. It's not like it's kind of like Fallout, I guess, where there are some areas you really cannot go unless you've got like good equipment. And the other thing is enemies. There are certain parts of the map that have enemies in it that are like way too OP for you to deal with. In the same way that in like Fallout, for instance, you had the what are they called? The big, tall, dragon-looking motherfuckers.
The behemoths?
No,
no. Death Claws.
Death Claws?
Death Claws, yeah, thank you. Kind of like that. You have a similar type of thing going on here with various different types of enemies. The economy of Stalker, I guess, is that like how the old Stalker games work, and it feels very much like this is also the case, is that you have your sort of Golden Path main mission, which is going on. You pick up lots of side quests from people, which could be anything from, the bartender in the local bar, because there's always like a bar because they're all drinking vodka because of the fucking radiation, right? So there's always like a little place where all the stalkers in this world, the stalkers are people who go into this zone because what happened when the nuclear event, the meltdown happened in Chernobyl in 1986 in the lore of this game, is that it imbued sort of a type of magical energy to create these why am I blanking on the name of them? What are they called?
Anomalies? Or
no, anomalies are the bad things. The things you collect in the game. The stalkers collect. I had it in my head a second ago. The whole podcasting world is screaming at me right now. But anyway, these trinkets, they're sort of magical trinkets that you pick up, and they have magical properties to them. And there is an economy of how you collect these and then you sell them, basically. But they also, can be used in fighting and stuff like that. So that's the general thing. So you can go off like, I left a stash here, or I need you to go kill these things, or please, bring medical equipment to my buddy who got attacked, or whatever. There's all these things. And then you can just go off the beaten path and search for these things. And you basically have like a little scanner that lets you know when you're close to one, kind of like a Geiger counter. And you can, hunt them down. The way that Stalker has worked is that in the more dangerous places, there are more of these, because the stalkers, if this was a real world situation, the more dangerous places would be looted less. So there would be fewer of them had already been sort of previously taken. Artifacts. Thank you. Jeremy nods, sorry.
I was looking, I didn't want to interrupt you. I just looked it up.
So that's how it works. Is you have a main quest. Usually there's a bunches of side quests to go do stuff around the world. And then you go off, and you can go off the beaten path and just explore stuff if you want as well. And it has this like I followed the YouTuber Shie, who's like an urban explorer. He does a lot of jumping on trains in Eastern Europe and then breaking into old submarine bases and stuff like that. And that's the vibe of Stalker. Stalker has always been this like, I'm breaking into the old world and I'm not meant to be here, and it's rusty and it's dark and it's subterranean, and I hope my light doesn't break. You turn your light off in this game, it's fucking pitch black. It is like there is no light creeping into these places. They are not meant to, you're not meant to be in them. And that's the pleasure of it, is like the rust and the decay and the detritus. And as a result of that, it's not like Fallout where there's like stuff everywhere to pick up. Like in general in these games, when you find something, you're like, oh no, I'm grabbing this fucking sausage off this guy's plate so I can eat it later. Or I'm here's some vodka bottles. I'm going to use those later because I'll need them for my radiation protection or whatever. So that's me very much talking about Stalker in general. I haven't played enough of this game to get really into the sort of exploration part yet.
Did you know that some urban explorers in Eastern Europe refer to themselves as stalkers?
Amazing. Love it.
So like in one of Shai's videos, he goes to I think it's to Chernobyl actually, and runs into other people there. And there's like a tour going through, and a young woman on the tour like sees them and understands what they're doing, that they're not on a tour, that they like hiked in the whole way. And she walks up, and the subtitle is like, "Oh, are you guys stalkers?" It's
Amazing.
like it's that. It's not even just in like an inside thing for the urban exploration community. It's like the Strugatsky brothers novel and like the Stalker movie, and presumably the games have permeated the culture so much that it's just like a neologism that everyone knows.
Yeah, and it should be maybe mentioned that like this movie is obviously tonally and visually somewhat inspired by the novel and probably the movie more so. But like in terms of what, you know, the gameplay of the game, it's not like, you know, it's not a like a video game version of the movie or anything like that.
That'd be sick. That'd be like, honestly, that'd probably be more like Disco Elysium than anything.
Exactly. Ruminations on it. Yeah, maybe the architecture of the game to a certain extent. Some of the parts I'm not really sure, but but it's doing its own thing. But yeah, it's the original game was always evocative, very interesting, and had its own look and style and feel that really has never been emulated by any other game since. It has a very particular lived-in, realistic, contemporary horror, and this one, I got the same feeling playing this one so far. Anyway.
Seems awesome.
One thing I wanted to ask is, like, in terms of difficulty, I want to try it, but I've always heard these games are punishing and hard. Can you save scrum? Like, what's the saving checkpoint system? Is it just like...
Are there achievements?
Yeah, there are achievements.
Good point.
Can you save scrum?
So Frank, this is on Game Pass.
Yep.
So you can just play it. When you start, they give you the story mode, stalker mode, and hardcore mode, or whatever you want to call it. You can save whenever you want, like open world game style. You can hit F5 and it'll do a quick save. You can do as many hard saves as you want. It doesn't save the screenshots when you save them, so it's a little bit annoying. You can't tell exactly where you were. If we were doing a documentary on Stalker 2, it would be annoying for you, Frank, to go back and get footage from places that we need it from. But yeah, you're free to do that, of course. And I would say, like, there was a couple of times, I don't think I've died yet, but there was a couple of times where I was, like, one enemy almost had me. You know, one of those mutants. There's a bunch of ones that are, like, invisible. Like, you can see them shimmering coming towards you, and they mess you up. And I think I had played enough of these games to know the minute you're in a fight, you need to fucking get cover. Like, you cannot get hit in these games. It's not super hardcore. It's not like Arma or something like that. But it's like, yeah, when you get hit by bullets, they hurt you. But, like, similarly, if you dome somebody, like if you just get them in the head with an automatic rifle, they are down immediately. Like they will flop like a Half-Life 2 Metro Cop with that one pistol shot. Like it is, but like then there's real recoil on the guns. Like I like the shooting in these games because it feels like these are real guns. Most of the time when you've had a firefight, like you can go up to somebody, their gun is, oftentimes the guns are broken or like partly broken or on the way to being broken, or they broke in the fight. Like as an example, when you go up and press F to pick up the gun, you can also hold F to unload the gun. So you're like, well, I'm not taking this gun, it's broken, but I'm definitely going to take the rounds because I need the rounds, because we're in a Stalker video game where you need to make sure you have enough equipment every single moment of the day. So yeah, it's not, I wouldn't say these games are particularly hard. They're harder than your baseline linear first person shooter, but you have to be considerate. It's kind of like PUBG or something. Like that game is hard if you're not thinking about the various elements strategically. But if you are, and you're like, oh, you know what, I need a better helmet, or like I should probably have a better vest on, considering all, you know, how deep we are into the game. I should look around for it. Similarly in Stalker, if like you just have to have your wits about you. But I don't think it's a particularly hard. I wouldn't call these hardcore games. I think people like to think that they are. You know, people who play them like to talk them up a bit. But I've never found these games to be particularly like hardcore. Certainly not like Dark Souls or anything like that.
You know, if you wanted to make Stalker hardcore, I feel like you should make it multiplayer. Put a big ring around the map that closes in over time.
It definitely has. Honestly, PUBG's aesthetic is very Stalkerish.
I'm joking, but I'm thinking about how one of the cities is called Pachinki, and I'm like, is that a place in Stalker? I could see that being.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and extraction shooters is a genre as well.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously inspired
Tarkov,
by
right?
battle royales, but a lot of a lot of them have the sort of like abandoned Eastern European Soviet bloc aesthetic.
Tarkov is. I don't think Tarkov exists unless Stalker does. To your point,
No, yeah.
like it's definitely visually it is 100% in the lane of Stalker. Yeah, so I'm just super jazzed. Like I played a lot of Half-Life 2 over the weekend. I got to play a bunch before we started that doc. I didn't play all that much. Played a bit while I was capturing gameplay and stuff. Some little bits and bobs that Frank was busy getting some other things, but I played a bunch of that over the weekend, and then I've been playing Stalker 2 this morning. So I personally, this 38-year-old PC gamer has had a fucking great week. Stalker 2, there's a bunch of different versions of it, but it is available on Game Pass on both PC and Xbox. I downloaded it on PC. There's a bunch of different versions of it. Let me just check the prices really quick. It's free if you have Game Pass, which obviously isn't free, but it's somewhat free.
Hey, freedom isn't free, man.
For all the Xbox. Exactly.
I think it's the founding fathers who wrote that. Who's that? Phil Spencer?
Phil Spencer.
Jim Ryan.
Day one on Game Pass. People.
$60.
We the players
on Steam. Deluxe edition is $80, and the Ultimate edition is $110. And I think a lot of that is just like extra bits and bobs of bonus.
You get a
side
radioactive uranium rod.
Exactly. They do have
Xbox
a bunch
green
of
though, the uranium rod. It's Xbox.
Two rods crossed like this.
Oh my god, yeah, like the inanimate carbon rod from The Simpsons, but
But an Xbox logo.
yeah, perfect. It just writes itself. There are physical versions as well that are in limited quantity around the world. There's like a backpack version and all this stuff, but seems like a lot of them are getting sold out a lot of the time. But yeah, that's it. Stalker 2. I'll have more to say on it next week once I've played more than 2 hours. But yeah, opening, super happy. If it crashes a bunch of times, fuck it, I don't care. I grew up playing PC games.
It's a Stalker game, aren't they like that?
Exactly, 100%.
Part of the experience.
That's the lane, man. That's
it's the
cost.
ARG.
Exactly, it is.
It's tied in.
Well, sometimes your guns break in Stalker. Sometimes your game breaks. Like, can we all stop? I feel like I'm at the point now where I need people online to just shut the fuck up when it comes to games being broken. I get it.
You don't have to say that. Just
publishers
you
are
just need them to
nickeling and
shut the fuck up.
diming
That's
you.
it.
I get it. DLC, blah blah blah. Adjusted for inflation, these games are fucking cheap. Stop complaining. $60 game, €60 game, £60 game when I was a kid is like $7,000 these days.
You can buy a house
Stalker
for the price of
cost.
Stalker.
Totally, yes. You're now getting Stalker for the cost of 2 Subway sandwiches. Or shut the fuck up. If it crashes every once in a while, these people have to leave a fucking war zone. Let them not crunch. You know what I mean? Like, for fuck's sake. Some of the developers on this game had to, the people who died who worked on this game. Shut the fuck up. Just play Stalker 2. And stop complaining. Give them a couple weeks to patch it. That's my review of Stalker. I'm glad I didn't have to review this game though, because I'm like, this is the type of game I would not like to rush through very much. And if you're going to review this game, you're going to run into basically every bug because like you're going to be running past the game faster than they're going to be able to be putting these patches out. So, it's a tricky one. I think in a couple of weeks' time, hopefully this game will be in a better spot. Which is also the case for the other game I played, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. First of all, Jesse, I want to hear about Rise of the Golden Idol. A sequel to a very popular game, and people seem to be enjoying this one too.
Yes, this is the sequel to Case of the Golden Idol. If you didn't play it, it's like a Mad Lib style detective puzzle solving game where you're given a scenario, a sort of still frame of life, still life, I guess is the right words, of just an event that has happened, a crime that has been committed. And you have to examine all of these little pieces of the puzzle that is this crime, find all of the words and possibilities, and then fill in, again, a Mad Lib style explanation of what the crime was. So it'll be like, somebody did something to this guy in the courtroom with a spoon. Oh, Colonel Mustard, what did you do? This is that kind of game. Rise of the Golden Idol is more of a modern take on the Case of the Golden Idol, sort of like mid-century Europe and more classical era. This is more like modern. You're on one of them takes place in a cinema, like an outside drive-in movie theater. One of them's like in a there's a news thing taking place. Like there's just a bunch of scenarios that all sort of tie together within each of the chapters of the story.
Right.
It's a lot of fun. If you haven't played the first one, if you don't know anything about the series, I really recommend checking them out. If you have Netflix, this is how I played it. It's included with the subscription, so you can play it on iOS and Android. I've been playing it on my iPad. It works great. I think a big part of playing the Golden Idol games, which I guess is now a series, is the games require you to sort of like cross-reference information. Part of what I think makes a whodunit a lot of fun is watching the narrative, and whodunit being like the movies, like Knives Out, or what's the one that I watched recently with Saoirse Ronan? Murder on the Orient Express, and See How They Run is the one that I watched with Saoirse Ronan. Those, I think it's a remake, but those like kinds of stories, the fun part of watching them is watching the narrative unfold throughout the story. It's like you think one thing's happening and then actually something else is happening, and games capturing that feeling is very, very hard to do. I feel like detective games tend to be the player character, like the player is solving the puzzle for the character, and then the character makes the logical connection. Here, you're presented with all of these still life moments, and when you first see them, it's very easy to make an assumption about what's going on, right? Like, oh, this is on fire. It must have been this guy who's holding the fire. But as you progress throughout the discovery of information,
that'd be a really short fucking game if it was like, oh man, look at that guy holding the match.
Of course, but that's the fun part of it, right? And I feel like, again, not a lot of games get to have the player be both the detective and the puzzle solver. Typically, you're just the puzzle solver in a lot of detective games, or at least the ones that I've played. And this one does like just so many layers to it where you think you've solved it, but actually 2 or 3 pieces are wrong in your little Mad Libs puzzle. And you have to go back and realize, oh shit, that's not even the character I'm supposed to put in this block. So it's fun.
So what happens if you like put the wrong one in?
So the Mad Libs sort of like block placing that you can do, it doesn't reveal any information about whether or not you're right or wrong until you filled it out completely. And once you filled it out, it'll tell you you're wrong if you have more than 3 incorrect things in place. So
how many things might there be?
Sometimes there's 6, sometimes there's like 30 blanks that you have to fill in across multiple different
blank
pieces.
Killed blank.
So it'll be like first name, last name, was seen going to blank and then blanked, and each of the blocks are like color coded, so names will be red, objects will be green, or sometimes will be gray or whatever. There's like rules for it, and it actually, I think it's probably not the worst part of the game. Like saying that makes it sound like it's so bad that it hurts it, but it's just in a game that is doing everything really well. I feel like the Mad Lib style puzzle solving can end up being sort of like brute forced. You can just place whatever in spots because it tells you you're missing 2 things. And
so that's my question is like, what's the risk reward there? Like, are you punished for do you get it wrong 3 times and you're out, or do you only have 1 chance to do it, or can you just like brute force it?
By default, you get as many tries as you want. I don't know if there's a difficulty setting or anything, but it doesn't tell you what you've got wrong on the puzzle. It just tells you have 2 or fewer things wrong, or just you're wrong completely. And then you get it right. But with those 2 things, you don't know what they are, right? So for puzzles where there's like 8 possible options, that can be easier to brute force than if it's like 15 or 20, right?
Would it be that many?
Yeah, absolutely. There have been some, like the one that I just did, I'm at the end of the 2nd chapter. The one that I just did is like, there's like 3 different pages of Mad Libs things to fill in. And the first one is short, and then it's really long, and then it's also really long, and it's like sometimes you have to place the names of the characters, and that's a lot of fun to work out. But the solutions, like the amount of characters increases over time. There's so many layers to it. It is just probably, this series now is like my favorite detective game series ever. Has anyone else played the Golden Idol games?
No, I've been meaning to play it, but I never did.
I played Curse of the Golden Idol. It's really, really good. I did not complete it though. I need to go back and finish it.
Yeah, it is so cool. Just the way, I don't remember now actually if Case of the Golden Idol does this, but Rise of the Golden Idol.
Curse.
That's okay. It was close. You just say you put on an accent. It's a Case of the Golden Idol.
My Boston accent coming up.
Case of Monkey Island.
Yeah. Rise of the Golden Idol does this thing where each chapter, once you finish the puzzle, the sort of like still life and solve the crime, you unlock a chunk of like a narrative that is taking place along all of these. In fact, sometimes you see characters from each of the still lives showing up in different puzzles later, which is like not really super surprising or anything, but it makes the through line of the narrative feel that much more interesting. Like you're watching it unfold over time, which is really fun, and plays into that sort of like Agatha Christie or like Poirot detective storytelling. But here, like, each of the things at the end of each of the chapters, you have to solve one final big puzzle that connects the story of each of the cases that you already solved, and like
that's very
figure
cool.
out the plot. It's yeah. Oh man, so good.
I fucking love this madcap art style.
Yeah, it looks so good, right? The like sort of warbly. It does kind of remind me of the new Monkey Island game a little bit, like a really grungy version of it, or like very detailed,
like,
gross.
Yeah, it's like a different style, but something about the I don't know, like the strokes or something. Is
the subtle animation is very similar in some ways.
God, it's very. I don't know what type of. I don't have the words for how this looks, but
it looks like if you took a bunch of mushrooms and went to the gas station and you were like looking around at all the grotesque characters who surrounded you.
The original was a lot more scratchy, though. It was a lot more pixel scratch.
Yeah, God, it's like the sickly world of a scanner darkly, sort of a little bit, where it's like, ugh, this looks a bit grim. Am I right in assuming this? Wait, does the Steam Deck have a touchscreen?
It does.
Yeah,
it does. I wonder, would this work on Steam Deck with the touchscreen? Because I imagine with the controllers, it'd be a pain in the arse.
Maybe, yeah, because it's on Steam, Switch, PS5, Xbox, and then mobile. I don't know. The Steam version, I assume, has functionality for mouse and keyboard, and then has functionality for console. But I don't know if they ported the mobile controls over.
Yeah, that's a good point. It mightn't be. There's a video online of somebody playing. There's like one of those YouTube channels where somebody basically plays every game on a Steam Deck and lets you know how it works. And
it's got to be the most expensive YouTube channel. Damn.
Yeah, right. They are using the haptic, like the mouse control on the right stick, which I do not want to ever do in my life. So yeah, maybe maybe I grab my wife's iPad or something, because to me this looks like a game would be fun to play on the couch, just hanging out or something. Nice. Rise of the Golden Idol. Yeah, I feel like I missed out on the first one. Curse of the Golden Idol, is that right? Case of the Golden Idol. God damn it.
It sounds like it should be. The Golden Idol causes a curse. That makes perfect sense. I understand.
Right. But I have it on my wish list, but I never actually played it. So yeah, I feel like I missed out on this, but you've convinced me to take the jump on this.
Hell yeah, I'm pretty sure the first one's also included with Netflix. So.
Oh really?
Yeah, I get a twofer.
There's also a bunch of DLCs for both, it looks like.
Well, for the first one. I don't know if the second one, does it already have DLC?
The Rise of the Golden Idol Detective Pass, which is...
that'll be when they start launching.
Season Pass, yeah.
Yeah.
So all for upcoming investigations. It costs almost as much as the base game. It's $18 or $18 for the Detective Pass. The base game is $19.
Damn.
And then 18 for Case, and then $6 each for the two DLCs for that one. So you can get them all for 10% off as a deal, $61 on Steam if you want to get the whole shebang together. Otherwise, you're $20 each. Netflix. I got Netflix. A lot of people have Netflix. Any other questions about Rise of the Golden Idol before we move on, gentlemen?
No.
Not me. Looks awesome.
Who did it?
We did it.
Yeah, who did it? Spoil it.
Let me briefly talk about Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. This game is getting review bombed.
Also on Game Pass.
On Game Pass, exactly.
Wait, it's getting review bombed? Sorry, what happened?
So there's a couple of... So let me backtrack a little bit. Okay. So the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 came out, or it was just called Microsoft Flight Simulator when it came out. And it was meant to be like the sort of all-encompassing, new platform for the Microsoft Flight Simulator world. You had a big marketplace, and they sold, extra airports and extra. Not airports. The airports are there for everyone, but extra like detailed airports, extra, custom. The ones how they actually look, extra planes, of course, stuff like that. And then a couple of years ago, they announced that they were making another one, and there was some consternation within the flight sim community because the cleanliness of that Microsoft Flight Sim one that came out, and the fact that it was the entire world, right? So like that's really impressive. We did a documentary on this on Noclip. You can go check it out. And the fact that they were going to do 2024, and like, what are you really going to add to this? What's going to be the meat on this particular bone that you couldn't have just sold to us as DLC? So as it turns out, there is a bunch of content, but one of the main things I would say that has changed is that instead of them downloading bunches of the game world to your machine, which Microsoft Flight Simulator's install was absolutely insane. They are streaming a lot more of this live this time around. From the cloud. And it sounds like the problem has been that the cloud stuff, as expected, probably happens a lot on launch games, but nobody likes to see it. Everyone's hitting the servers at the same time where the most amount of people are, and it's completely buckled under pressure. So they are working to fix that stuff, it sounds like, at the moment. That's the big issue, and that's why at the moment it's overwhelmingly negative on Steam, because a bunch of people pay good money on Steam to play this game, and it's not working. I played a bit this morning. It seems to be working all right. It's like 24 hours after launch, so maybe they've chilled out some of this stuff. I had some areas take a while to load, but it hasn't crashed or done anything crazy. In terms of content, the big difference they have in this one is in the original Flight Simulator, they had, free flight. You could kind of do what you want. They had a bunch of missions you could do and things like that. In this one, they have a career mode, which straight up has you like create a pilot with one of the most confusing character creator things I've ever seen, where they just give you like, here's 100 people, pick one that looks like you, and then you get to, it's like, so I'm just like scrolling through like Asian ladies and white old men and like all this to try and find someone that looks like me. Like there's no like filtering or anything, and they all kind of look weird and not like anyone. And I'm like, well, let's keep going. Anyway, talk about getting hung up on something unimportant. But the idea is you can get your private pilot's license first of all.
Dude, and then you have to fly for 1,000 hours before you're allowed to fly a regular plane.
You got to get your logbook.
You can't return it on Steam. Once you're done with the training.
Yeah, exactly. Got to get your instrument rating. Make sure you're flying in the weather a bunch every other day. So yeah, you can get your pilot's license and professional pilot's license, and then you can basically go in a bunch of different career paths. From I want to be one of those cool motherfuckers who like sprays retardant onto fires in California. I want to be one of those cool motherfuckers who flies helicopters out to oil rigs with people on. I want to be one of those cool motherfuckers who, helps like PG&E make the towers that the electrical grid work on by like dropping one on while the guys like weld it onto. So it's, you basically just get to like pick your job after this and then do your job. And there's a bunch of different things you can do. So helicopters are obviously in this as well, which is a big thing as well. And they have all this cool extra content in there. But largely it is similar to the last one. You can still play this with a mouse and keyboard. It has VR support at the box. I threw on my Valve Index here, Valve Index, and it seemed to do the job. You can play mouse and keyboard. You can play with a controller, and it'll just tell you kind of what to press, or you can play with your crazy HOTAS setup or whatever. And I've been dabbling in it. I would have been reticent to buy it maybe, especially as I think the ultimate edition of this is like $200 because it's probably a lot of reason why people are giving it bad reviews, because I think and it's basically more airplanes and more of these detailed real versions of the airports as opposed to the sort of proc gen ones. You know what I mean?
More pilots to choose from, more like anonymous pilots. Can you imagine if you walked up into the cockpit of a commercial airliner and they were controlling it with an Xbox controller? I feel like nothing would make me feel less safe than that.
Could you imagine if you went on a submarine and they were piloting it with a PlayStation controller?
With a Logitech controller? I wish it was a PlayStation controller.
But I can't imagine it would go well.
No. Fucking hell. I don't think Bluetooth works on any of those controllers on a good day, let alone 7,000 fathoms under the deep. So it seems like a more fleshed out, content-rich version of the same game that came out a couple of years ago. Hopefully it'll sort out the all the technical stuff. But looks incredible too. Another game that my PC was having a little bit of trouble chugging along with.
Outside of sports games, people seem to not have sports specifically like football, college football, all that, soccer. People don't really seem to be handling like new entries in a series like this well anymore, where there's a lot of like, and I don't blame them. I think like it's just maybe a sign of the industry in general, where if you play a game that has a lot of microtransactions and it lasts years, and then a new one comes out and you don't get to carry over your microtransactions, people seem pissed, and I don't blame them. Like Fortnite, I think, has trained a lot of people to be like, I bought this 12 years ago. I'm using this. What do you mean I have to spend $90 and then also buy Scream again to play in the game? I want to play him now. Like that sort of thing.
Worth mentioning that your stuff from Flight Sim 2000 does carry over.
Oh, well then.
Game. So, but I think I may be wrong. The wording that came up when it noticed my account was that stuff is coming. So
okay.
I think that maybe some of it hasn't, maybe some or all, I don't know, hasn't actually come over yet. I also don't know what I bought. Maybe I got a code for like an edition that had some extra stuff on it. I honestly can't remember. But I honestly, when it's just, I think all this stuff is case by case. I think the purity of last year's one sort of attacked a certain part of like our lizard brain that feels like, no, this is Flight Sim now. And the fact that they came along and went, we're doing another one, 2020, it felt like, but you already have the thing. Can we not just patch this thing instead? Like, I guess there's a world in which Flight Simulator makes sense as a service model thing as well, maybe, because the hardcore people play it so much. And there are services that people like do that plug into it. Like there's a lot of, I think we talked about this before 4 years ago, but like there's you can subscribe to pretend ATC, like air traffic controller channels, where you will have like people pretend to be air traffic control for you in this game.
That's
and
awesome.
That stuff can plug in. Yeah. So a lot of people do treat this stuff like that, and they have big rigs and all that type of stuff. But I kind of get it. Like I kind of get that there's a reticence and they really want them to make sure that there is enough content here to do it. There is another thing as well. I have no problem with this personally. I think like there are lots of things when it comes to AI generated content that I am super obviously against and dislike, especially when it's like pulling from artists and things like that. Like I understand that that's not good. I do think there's a little bit of throwing the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to generative stuff, because so much of that stuff sucks. The AI voices that they use in this, I have no problem with, because the thousands upon thousands of names of airports and lingo and my name, Danny O'Dwyer, when they're saying stuff like that, it would be nigh on impossible basically to have people voice act that in the, I don't know how many languages Microsoft publishes this game in. So to me, it makes complete sense. I have ethically no problem with them using voice actors in Microsoft fucking Flight Simulator 2024. That said, they are hilariously bad at times. When you're selecting your what is it? Your pilot. I forgot the word for fucking pilot.
Bus driver for the
your
place.
plane flyer.
Exactly. You can go through a bunch of speech stuff. Like pick your voice. And there's a common phrase that's used in airplane flight, which is aviate, navigate, communicate, which is what you do in an emergency. Fly the plane first, then make sure you're like, get control of the plane, make sure you're going in the right direction, and you're on your flight plan, and then communicate with ATC. And when I was going through the speech dialogues, the guy said aviate, navigate, communicate. No. And I was like,
that's not what you want to hear from your air traffic controller.
It's really not.
And he's like, yeah, make sure you're aviating the plane. You are after all an aviator, right?
Exactly right. So that I thought was like, yeah, it's funny how like even this stuff just can't get that shit right. The most, famous, probably one of the most famous phrases the pilots hear.
It is ironic as well with generative stuff, ethical quandaries aside, that I feel like the best era of AI generated imagery was when it was fucking terrible. And so
Yeah.
like honestly, that makes me like more like, at first I was like, all right, AI generated voices. Oh, but they're terrible. Okay. You got me back. I'm back in.
Yeah. And it's like, or games like, I think the Finals uses it as well.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and like I don't have a like I understand if the problems that I have are when people's work is being scanned and used, and like I'm a fucking red-blooded labor supporting person, but I don't necessarily prescribe to this sort of all or nothing idea that if you're not using voice actors, then I suspect there is more voice acting work in video games right now than there has been ever.
Yeah. Just
because like there's so much of it, and it's so much more of a I'm currently going through tapes on the Soul Reaver project, archive tapes, and a bunch of them have auditions from people, and it's all the people you knew who were voice actors back in 1998. Like, it wasn't that many. And like most of them are in cartoons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that to like, I'm sure it's really difficult out there and people are being taken advantage of and all that. But I also think that be it small indie games who can use this, who are never going to voice other people, right? Or in the case of something like this, where it's like so much. Or I guess in the case of something like the finals, where it's a live game and it's just really difficult to get in a process where you're recording all the stuff that you need. Like, we're inserting a new game mode. Well, we need to get all of those voice actors back in. Like, booking voice actors can be difficult. You know what I mean? There's a certain overcorrection I feel like that goes on with this stuff a little bit. I think people should have their heads screwed on right and like be critiquing this for sure, but I have no problem with them doing this stuff. It does sound like Microsoft Sam though, which is also very...
I wish it just straight up sounded like Microsoft Sam.
Remember that guy?
It was great. Or you know what? I think there's a charm to, and maybe it's a nostalgia, a charm to the bad spliced voice acting of like the 49ers are going for the touchdown.
Touchdown.
Like, I love that stuff.
Yeah,
it's so
it's great.
bad. I think it's funny, right? I think the same way about AI voice acting because in terms of like advancing what you can do in games, it's like replacing what used to be text, which was way easier to write. You could write however many lines of text as you want in an RPG and you could say anything. But as soon as you have to voice all the characters for whatever reason, well, now you're limited by budget and the person's ability to speak like human hours that exist. So I think AI voice and like the generation of text and all that stuff, that could be really advancing the medium, but also it's built on stealing stuff from people. All of it is like image proc gen can get really good, but the tech at the base level,
it's not like Siri isn't. Microsoft Sam wasn't.
But like the logic of making it work, it's not like they could pay the voice actor that they're using for the voice. That's all great, but like the base level of the technology, the only reason that it works is because it's trained on so much information that it's not paid for.
Well, so it depends what type. Like there's lots of different ways you can create voices that are, I mean, if it's machine learned or whatever, I guess that's the case.
Yeah.
If you're the terminology that we're using now in terms of like, so I don't know exactly how they're using this stuff now. I don't know if they have sourced that stuff ethically as well, because you can do that. You can get a bunch of people in a place and pay them for their voices. And then like I have talked to voice actors who have done that, who have gone into a place.
You can pay the people whose voices you use. Sorry.
But also Microsoft Sam didn't use that.
Yeah.
And what these people legitimately sound like that. Like this does not sound like even Siri levels of talking. Like this sounds like when I was 18, you could type words into a computer and have it speak it to you. Like that was
there's
not
like voice synth and Vocaloid.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And that's what a lot of this stuff is. It's not necessarily them trying to like mask someone else's voice, like specifically, which I think is the way that you do it in the model. I don't think you can throw in a lot of different voice stuff into one. Isn't that? I don't know. I guess I don't know enough about the specifics of how that stuff works.
I feel like the distinction that Jesse is speaking to is that there are generative models. Like you can train a generative model in a bubble where like you could, as an artist, create 1,000 pieces of art and feed them into a generative model and have that generative model generate only off of that body of art. But Jesse, am I correct in saying that what you're saying is that like the base technology that allows people to do that was developed using like stolen art assets? I don't know enough to say if that's the case.
Again, also, I also don't know the inner workings of these machines enough to say whether or not that's true. But my understanding for the image generators and the text generators and some of the voice generators from the research I've done is they're all based on
Yeah,
stuff like this.
It
this
depends.
Podcast.
It depends. Like Mid-Journey clearly has pulled from loads of art around the world. But like when a video game company, like I don't know, but like I'd be really interested to know how the finals does it. Like they probably, I don't know, but if it's one person's voice, I don't think you can do that. I think you need to hire somebody to do all that stuff to synthesize that voice speaking all those words. I don't think you can. Well, first of all, literally, where do you get the voice? Like the only alternative method of doing it, I suspect, would be that you would train it on thousands of voices, and then what the fuck accent is coming out of that? Like, I don't think you can do it with art, of course, because images can be amalgamations of lots of different styles. That's possible, but voices don't work like that. Well, so I don't.
I mean, voices
wouldn't an accent
just
just be like an aesthetic? Like, isn't that just like the flavor of of the like the timbre of a voice and the accent and things? Wouldn't that just sort of be the aesthetic qualities equivalent to like an image's aesthetic?
Yeah.
But an accent, I would say no, because an accent is one category. Like when you're looking at an image, it can be an amalgam of different things, and maybe we actually have a categorization that is an amalgam of those things because art has done that. Whereas if you're listening to one person, their accent is consistent. They don't change every word.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying that like it would have to develop a consistent flavor, like aesthetic flavor, timbre, accent for that fake announcer or whatever.
Because otherwise it wouldn't sound like a human person at all. It would sound like some weird, oscillating, ever-changing voice. So that's why I'm saying that the models that we are critical of when it comes to art, I don't think that applies to the voice stuff. I know that like Siri, for instance, is based off of a particular person's voice that they did a bunch of work on. Yeah. And I don't think they even used, I might be wrong, but I don't think they used what we're talking about now in terms of ML, because they have a very particular, like Siri only has a certain amount of responses. It's not like you can feed Siri like a novel and she'll read from a Wikipedia page and stuff like that, but it sounds stinted. So I don't know if that's how that works.
Yeah, the finals is an interesting example because I played a bunch of the finals, and it's kind of a weird example where you do make a good point that adding more like modes and features and stuff over time could complicate it because they'd have to get actors back in. But also, like a bunch of voice acting these days is remote, and a lot of professional voice actors have like in-home studio setups that are passable, especially like, after COVID, I feel like a lot of them had to adapt to that. And the finals in particular is like, it's kind of not that many voice lines. Like, no, it's kind of just like, Red stole the case. What a twist of events.
Spliced audio I was talking about. It's,
yeah. I feel like they could have got away with voice actors. That for me is a somewhat egregious example of voice AI voice that didn't feel necessary.
But I guess like this discussion is literally the reason why I'm bringing this up, because I do think there are misconceptions about a lot of this stuff, and I do think it's case by case, and I think you can't have this sort of ethical, one size fits all argument against this stuff because it doesn't apply because we're doing that because of reasons that have nothing to do with the actual base argument, because of social reasons, because of signaling reasons, because we want to be seen to be alliance, but like you sort of can't. I feel like that's sort of a cop out sometimes. Like, and I get it that like most of the generative art stuff generally seems to fall inside of that bracket, but I think a lot of machine learning stuff, there is potential in there that doesn't necessarily mean that it's like stomping on people's, exploiting labor or stopping people from getting work, or even exploiting other people's work. Like
in this case, in the case of the finals, to latch onto a specific example so that I'm not speaking in abstracts, I think in this case, it would be a situation where there is sort of an ethical issue, because essentially what they're doing is saying, like, okay, say they put the ad out there, they're like, we need a voice actor to come in, or two voice actors, there's a male and female voice, to come in and do these voices to train on so that we can then do generative voices off of those. We're going to pay you X amount of dollars. I think that the issue then becomes is that, does a company have a like legal obligation to create a human job that is ongoing for these people? No, absolutely not. Do they have is there a moral imperative to do it? Depends on who you ask. I think in this case, they could kind of like pay someone a smaller dollar amount to create a generative voice than they would have to pay to an ongoing voice actor to maintain those roles. And I think that is the issue, is that it is like, yeah, I mean, it gets into the automation discussion. It's like, do companies have a moral or legal obligation to not automate because they create jobs by not automating? Probably not. I don't think we should like stymie progress into the future on those grounds. But I do think that in this particular instance, that is sort of like this. It's not about like generative things always bad objectively.
Yeah.
In this case, I am saying that like they found someone who needed the money and they trained off of their voice so that they wouldn't have to pay someone to continue doing the voice, which I think
I'm with you right up until you made that assumption.
Well, what's the assumption?
You're assuming that they did not ethically pay that person.
No, I'm saying they paid a person, but I'm saying that like, okay, well, let's assume that the dollar amount that they paid that person is equivalent to if they had to have that actor keep coming in. Like, then I guess, yeah, it definitely gets a little morally like, or, you know, ethically, like the issue gets a little more blurry and gray.
Well, it doesn't get gray. It gets ethically, like, if it, like, let's assume that they paid that person what they would have.
Then why do it just out of convenience? So then the argument for doing it is just convenience, so that they don't have to have the actor come back and do it, because it is inferior. Like, the voice acting in the finals is not good.
Yeah. I guess, but I guess the pragmatic argument is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the ethical argument.
Right.
So,
but
like,
I'm saying that, like, if you're talking about the ethics of doing it, then what is the argument for doing it?
No. But what I'm saying, like, forget the pragmatism.
Okay.
Ethically, if they're paying them the same amount, it is ethical.
Yeah.
Right. So, but what I'm saying is, we don't even get. The problem is that will always be blurry, because we'll never know how much these people are paid. People now don't know how much regular voice actors are paid. If they knew that, they'd probably have ethical issues with that. Like, a good recent example of this in our Half-Life 2 documentary. The homeless guy who was the face of Eli got paid a couple of $100, which is what they were paying people at the time, to get his face scanned for a game that is the flagship property for a multi-billion-dollar private company. Right? That guy's nobody knows who that guy is. Ethically, is that okay? Like, how do we feel about that, given with hindsight? What I'm saying is that, like, the arguments that we would have about how much, like, payment should be worth for these people in this hypothetical situation is ultimately the same argument we would have if it wasn't generative. Is that, like, are they being exploited? And Unfortunately, we'll never know, because we don't get access to that information. And the baby out with the bathwater problem I have is that people say voice acting good because that voice actor got paid, generative voice acting bad because that voice actor is not getting paid for the hypothetical every word in the world that they'll have to say.
Right.
And I'm saying, and in both situations, people can be paid less or under the market value. We never know.
I totally agree. I guess all I'm saying is that the best case scenario in which that person is adequately compensated the exact same dollar amount as if they had come back in, and now it's a benefit for them because they have to do less work and they're getting the same amount of money. Best case scenario, the voice acting is still inferior with current voice generative technology.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I think we're talking about ethics. Like, I agree. Like, yeah.
Okay. If we're just talking about ethics, but I guess what I'm saying is, like, it doesn't occur in a vacuum, because I think that, like, the argument for doing something is a holistic argument. Like, if we're isolating ethics as just like a like in a bubble philosophical discussion, then
which
yes,
we were, like, at the start. So I'm happy to open it up. You know what I mean? But
I am formally opening it up.
Yeah. What I was saying at the start was that this was a conversation. What I was making was an argument that we are throwing the baby out with the bathwater ethically when it comes to the issue of machine learning writ large. That, like, that is, things are applicable in different ways, and that you sort of need to be a bit more scrutiny. We need to scrutineer these things a little bit more before we make these super white things. The Microsoft Flight Simulator voice acting is not making a very good argument, and neither was I, that the quality of this stuff is better. And I agree, the finals as well does not, it serves the purpose, I suspect, but it doesn't necessarily sound any better. That said, these are models that can be updated without having to, you know what I mean? Like, they can update the quality of the voice acting in Microsoft Flight Simulator. They can update the quality of that in the finals, because it's all code. Like, it's tech. Like, you can change it. I
would say that a further wrinkle in the ethical discussion is that if you have say for any creative medium that you have to, like, there has to be a person for these voices to train off of, right? That is the assumption, that there is a voice actor who is a talented craftsperson that the model trains off of. If we have a future in which a generative voice synth is the thing, it kind of outmodes the need for people to be trained off of, which I feel like kind of kills the craft as well. So I do feel like that there's an additional ethical quandary, which is like, you know, if you have generative models that do all of the visual art in the future, then visual artists can't get paid to do visual art, then the models stagnate because there are no new voice actors creating new types of voice acting and pushing into new spaces. There are no new visual artists pushing visual artists into new spaces. Or not even new,
just the same. Like if you hire a voice actors, you know, to emulate the voice off of, 10 years later, they might just be better and like be a better actor. Bring them in, have them record new voice. But you can't now. Now the voice direction is up to the voice director, who's usually not an actor. There's like a conversation that happens in the acting in the booth between the director and the voice actor. And you can't do that as much with the director is also operating what the voice sounds like and feels like. And
100%. I just spent like significant amount of the past week listening to voiceover sessions that were recorded for like a pretty amazing classic game, which is why I think that certainly in the near future, and honestly I think going into most of the future, this generative voice stuff won't be used in most games because of that reason. If you have a linear big budget first person or third person game, whatever, that's like acted, they won't use these stuff. It makes no sense. It makes way more sense for them to bring people in. So oftentimes, again, when we talk about this stuff and extend ourselves into the future, I feel like, I'm not talking about you guys necessarily, I'm talking sort of just in general, that people think that this like all or nothing thing where like, oh, it's going to replace all voice actors. Like, it's never going to happen. It's never going to replace all voice actors. Hatsune Miku can exist in the world.
What reason is there for it to not?
I would say...
I'm making the argument right now. What I'm saying is Hatsune Miku lives in a world in which you still have other people who are playing guitar. There are games that require this, like Microsoft Flight Simulator, where it makes sense. There are games like Hades where it leans so much on its voice cast that there would make no sense, that where stuff is written, like when Greg is writing those sentences, they need to be performed either a certain way or interpreted a certain way. And that's just the craft of storytelling that's existed in any like visual or audio medium for about 100 years. So like, no, if everyone went in the voice acting, like AI voice acting direction, there will always be a need to counter that. And I think there is both a drive to do that in the AAA space where, hey, we don't need to save money doing this. We can happily pay a voice actor to do this. They don't actually cost that much. Sure, we can get somebody in to do this the way we want it done. Or in the indie space where they're trying to counter maybe a popular direction that's going, and you know, where voices are going in that direction with using machine learning. So yeah, I think people should be fucking wary of this stuff. 100%. My argument is that we need to critique these things on a one-by-one basis, because the AI is bad argument is going to get less and less tenable with every month and year that we're living in this particular technology paradigm. And I just think, in general, like, I mean, at this, you know, it's a thing that we should look like. Jeremy brought this stuff to our attention way before it was in the mainstream, back then we were saying how cool it was, right? And it is cool until we realized it was, you know, what it was doing, or until it sort of increasingly was doing the bad thing. I think at the start it was not necessarily as clear that was the case.
That's my definitive hot take on AI is that it's at its best when it sucks, because it is like because it's the thing that we're getting at here is that there's a human dimension to creativity, and AI is currently incapable of doing it. And even if it was perfectly capable of emulating it, because it is a generative model like ChatGPT is very good at pretending that it's thinking. It is not capable of thinking, and it is not capable of processing the outside world in a way that is not just reflecting back like, this is what a person might say if they were talking about that.
Well, and but Jeremy, what is it to think? What does it mean? What is
all right, get out of here, Peter Thiel.
I think, therefore I am, sir.
I think that it's like, yeah, it is by definition inauthentic form of cognition, even if you were to label it as cognition, because like if you were talking to a person and they were listening to you, and instead of thinking like, how do I feel about this, they were thinking like, what might a person say in response to this? You're like, it's fucking this like cardboard non-human like cyborg person. And I think that, yeah, I don't know, there's just like there's a human element that is missing from these things, and AI has its own sort of like approximation of that when it sucks, because it's error prone. Like one of the first AI images I ever showed Danny when I explained this technology was the most god awful Pikachu drawing I've ever seen in my life. And it was so bad, and the reason it was great is because a human being would never draw that, like, because it sucked, and that's why it was cool, you know? So I don't know, maybe we need to roll back the AI 3 or 4 years or something, and then just like leave it
there.
Yeah, it was best when it looked like it was some shit that would be sold on a t-shirt on Grailed.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like just some knockoff weird ass interpretation of it. Yeah, look, this stuff's going to keep changing, right? And we'll you know, we don't know when the next big bad version of this is around the corner, but yeah, for now at least, there will be no voice actor in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 because they need a computer to mispronounce basic words and make it funny. You do get to pick who your co-pilot is, though. So I have my co-pilot. My pilot is wearing shorts and a black shirt, which is my tradition. And my co-pilot is a woman who is wearing like a full pilot's uniform, even when I'm flying around in a tiny Cessna. So I thought that was quite funny. It's like I'm a rich guy who is like a full-time pilot as my co-pilot.
Did you give her a silly name? I feel like
I don't think you can't give them names.
Having the voice synth pronounce the name is the best, because whenever I play I started playing Dragon Quest 3 recently, the original one, not the remake, and I just made my guy's name is Bustin, like Justin, but busting.
Thanks.
And I just had to explain.
Appreciate it.
And it's great because there will be moments where it's like, the world is in your hands, Bustin. It's just good. I just love having
pretty well.
Names. Yeah,
that's crazy. No, mine is like pulling it from my fucking Xbox gamer tag, so it's just like Danny O'Dwyer. You know, it's like all one word, lower case. So no, not particularly impressive. That is all the normal games we've been talking about this week. Frank Howley, what have you got written down here? I'm very confused. Are you doing?
Man.
Oh, you're playing old PS2 games. Is that it? Okay,
dude.
Bring us back.
My life has been forever changed because of retro achievements. Oh my God. This is like, I even said this yesterday. Like, the number one thing I've been obsessed with for like the last 2 years has been Joshi Wrestling. Retro achievements is like almost matching that. I have found something else in my life that I'm like so excited. Like it's like having two sons. Like, oh my God, so much warmth and joy.
Okay. Like two children.
Not like children, but like giant.
I don't give a shit about children, but if I had two giant balls of star orbiting
boys.
me.
Yeah, two giant beautiful reasons for living. I got Joshi Wrestling and retro achievements. Oh my God. Okay, so Retro Achievements has been a scene for a while, and I've had several friends who are on it. Like, there's one friend, Seb Mall, who's on Twitch a lot, who's always been, like, doing that. Of other friends, we talked so much about the Bouncer, like, over on our top 200 games list. I was like, I want to replay the Bouncer. So I pulled it up, and then a friend mentioned, like, wait, before you play this, on the PS2 emulator, you can log into Retro Achievements. So I made an account, whatever. I started the Bouncer, and on the top left, it's like, boop, this game has, 100 achievements. So on Retro Achievements, this is a community-driven website, and it's all based through like emulators and stuff where people are just going into the code of old video games and coming up with achievement lists by like looking at the hex codes and stuff like this. So now there are millions of games that have achievements. So I've spent like the last 3 days just like a fiend, just going, like I beat the Bouncer, and so I can get into that, but it's like, oh my God, every time you're playing a game and you beat a level, you get the dopamine rush of like, bloop, 10 achievement points unlocked. You cleared level 1 of the Bouncer. I've been playing Burnout 3, Tony Hawk 3, DDR, just discovering all these games. And it's like, oh my, I don't know. I can't remember the last time I felt so like cracked out on video games. It's so exciting. So it's like, oh my God, I don't know. I just want to tell the world about Retro Achievements. And it really is that same joy like when the Xbox 360 first came out and this was brand new. And all my friends at school were like, you play Call of Duty? Yeah. Would you beat this level on Veteran? And we had like an achievement race and we'd be comparing our things. So now my friends and I are all like playing Tony Hawk games again and comparing each other's like leaderboard scores and like achievements and stuff and discovering new secrets about the games. I got last night I was playing Suburbia on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. I got the secret tape in a way I'd never gotten before. And to me, that was like, did I discover a speedrun strat? I don't know. Like, it's an excuse to play these old games again, but looking at them through a new lens with all these like made up achievements. And it's like, it's so cool. And I don't know. There's so many avenues to get into, but like Retro Achievements is amazing. Yes.
Can I ask you just the first, because I went to the bouncer page on Retro Achievements to see. And the first thing I was wondering was like, why is there like 2 bars here? And then I noticed that there are 2 different versions of the achievements. Yes. There are softcore users and hardcore users.
Yes.
Please explain.
So I'm a softcore user. So what it is, softcore user is where you have all the emulation stuff enabled, like save states or whatever. Hardcore is like none of that. Like you only have to. And now I'm not save scumming or abusing it, but like I don't want to mess with those emulation settings, so I just leave everything default. But also it's helpful for like I'm just gonna save right here and come back to this game later. But on the bouncer, I've gotten 30 out of 65 achievements. So now I can zoom in on the bouncer. I was like, I remember in our discussion, like I played this as a kid, I didn't like it. You beat that game in 1 hour. I 10,000% understand why people return that game back. You can beat the game in an hour. It is basically a tech demo for the PS2. But like the gimmick with the game is like there's 3 characters and you're supposed to play through it as each character. But like, dude, like I beat it in
Streets of Rage.
Yeah, basically. But it was like I played this in one sitting and I was like, that's it? That's the whole game? I can't like now I remember why I didn't like it as a kid.
That
now
sounds
I remember
great
why
to me.
No, nowadays, it was Retro Achievements. So that's the thing, is like I feel like all these games were released way before their time. Now, boot up the bouncer, play it with Retro Achievements. Oh my god, it's great. It's awesome. Also, yeah, you can play it in Japanese, so oh my god.
Is there an achievement for that?
No, there isn't, but yeah, right.
Be.
But like speaking about like Japanese stuff, I've been diving through the Dance Dance Revolution games on PS2, and I'm just playing with my Xbox controller. But it's so fun, and just I don't know. I'm just diving through all these games I kind of forgot about. Like I was playing Burnout 3 and being blasted with like the pop punk soundtracks and stuff, and so. I don't know. It's just a very fun, silly excuse to just play old games again. But the Retro Achievement stuff is genuinely so thrilling and exciting, and like,
Do they get fun with the achievements? You know what I mean? Like I can imagine on a crowdsourced thing, they might stay within certain paradigms, like complete this level or beat this level with this person or whatever. But like Xbox 360 achievements always had like a couple of weird ones thrown in there as well. Did they do that?
There are some weird ones. Like I was looking at Gran Turismo 4, and the achievements in that are like hard. It's like beat all of this race in like one sitting, or like do all of this cup in one sitting. There's some where it's like, I was playing PsyOps, which is that Midway game, and there's an achievement for playing a Scorpion. I didn't know you could play a Scorpion, but like there's an achievement for that. So I was like, okay, I put in the code, I played as Scorpion, and yeah, PsyOps as Scorpion, you're running around as Scorpion with this machine gun, and you're doing telekinesis and throwing people, and it's like, I wouldn't have known about that if it wasn't for this Retro Achievement. So like, in the same way, it'll encourage you to play games in a different way, and so like, yeah, it's like I'm only scratching the surface here, and I'm sure like there probably is Amiga achievements. I'm trying to think.
No, I don't need to hear this.
Let me see.
I'm looking at it right now. Cannon Fodder has achievements.
Does it?
Yep.
Well, is one of them keep Jules, Jops, and Stu alive until the end?
Let's see.
Sorry, that was a very specific thing to ask.
Let's see. No, so there are weird ones like this. Let's see. There's a lot for like kill 1,000 enemies, kill all these missions. No, let me find. Kill 1,500 enemies having 100 or less deaths. Let's see.
Is this in Cannon Fodder?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
Retro Achievements this community is robust. I'm digging through the consoles they've got here. You got Vectrex on here. You got
let's go.
Whoa.
Everything you could want. ColecoVision, baby.
Dude, they got the
back.
use box. Holy.
They got everything.
Do they have what was this? Is there a Sticky Balls achievements for the what was that? What was the name of that fucking console again? The Gizmondo?
No, unfortunately, I've never heard of Sticky Balls, but there's no achievements for that.
I'm not surprised.
Wait until you're older,
Gizmondo's
Frank.
yeah. I guess there's no emulator for the Gizmondo.
Yeah, but like people like the bouncer achievements was just added, I think, in September. So it's like this community is adding. Like the big thing was months ago on the Dolphin, the GameCube emulator, they added Retro Achievement support. So I have a friend just in the last few months who 100% completed Animal Crossing, which meant like get every piece of furniture, see every event. But it's like, I don't know. There's just this fun rush. It seems like this whole community of people just like replaying old games and like discovering new secrets. Because of this, I found a PS2 fighting game called Arcana Heart, which is like so mind blowing. It's a fighting game where you play as like magical girls and robots in Tokyo, but every stage is literally a district in Tokyo. There's Yokohama, Chinatown. There's
cool.
Shinjuku. There's Tokyo. Like I was fighting as robot girls in Tokyo Tower, and I'd never heard of this game before. But now here's another new game that takes place in Tokyo that I can be obsessed with. And I even had a friend in Akihabara pick up Arcana Heart 3 on a PS3 so I can play it in the future. So it's like you can look at the games list for each system and see what games are on there. And I kind of went through and just grabbed a bunch of stuff. And like, if you want to get into Retro Achievements on the website, they even have a download page that has all the supported emulators on there. So it's like, part of me was like, I beat Silent Hill 2, but it's like, oh man, should I play Silent Hill 1 with achievements? Like,
you should.
Right? Like,
Absolutely.
It's just, now I want to go through my game collection and find any old game and just try to find it. And it's, oh my God, this is really fun. I think Silent Hill has 66 achievement points worth 666 total.
So, oh my God.
So there's
Whoa, dude.
Yep.
That's awesome.
This is cool. This is like a good. I mean, I like to go back and play old games all the time, but this is like a good additional layer of like because I've been replaying Final Fantasy VI because I haven't played it since I was like fucking 7 years old. But if it was a game that I'd played in the last 10 years or something, I feel like this is an interesting added layer that would make a revisit fresh, even if you checked it out recently.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think like what would be Jesse. Any games coming to mind for you? A classic game you like to
that
go back
I'd want
to
to see some achievements on. Oh, you know what? It's on the rare replay probably, but Perfect Dark with achievements would be pretty fun.
I love Perfect Dark.
Yeah, or Donkey Kong 64. A lot of
I
N64
hate Donkey
games.
Kong 64.
Did they do
that's
a
an awful
Perfect
game.
Dark? They probably did it down like an Xbox Live Arcade version of Perfect Dark. Did they?
Probably.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
And then there are retro achievements for Donkey Kong 64.
All right, there's my weekend sorted. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I do. Your point about these games having like you didn't know you could do the Scorpion thing in PsyOps.
Yep.
That is, I think, an understated thing about achievements. Like they're kind of dopamine rush and like kind of whatever. But there is also that part of it where I'm like, it's cool that there's an opportunity to learn about secrets that you may not have known about. I think like it does ruin the possibility for you to learn it yourself. It doesn't ruin it though if you don't check the achievement list, but just knowing that that's there for older games that seem sort of straightforward or straight-faced at least, being able to go, oh, like that's a thing you can do in this game. I had no idea. That I think is an underrated part of achievements. And these are the kind of games that could benefit from that because that's not as common anymore where there's a secret that you can't kind of discern from the menu or something, or it's not told to you by an announcer when you open the game pop up.
Yeah, and there's probably spoilers sensitivity
That
over
too.
time as well. Like I'm sure you didn't care that they spoiled that Scorpion was in this game. Like you didn't remember. How did they handle that before?
dude. I didn't want to know that.
There were secret achievements on the 360, right? That unlocked when you got them.
Like hidden trophies and stuff.
it still works that day today where it's like they're hidden unless you reveal it. But I think
but you
I don't
can
know.
reveal if you want,
Yeah.
right? That's a good way that they've sort of gated that stuff where it's not like in your face, but
Yeah.
The other thing that I appreciate about achievements is playing UFO 50. It is very satisfying to hit another tier of 30 out of 50 gold cartridges and then see that you're in the top, 99th percentile of UFO 50 players. Like,
Wow.
I don't know. There's something sweet about that.
I gotta play more of that for our upcoming game of the year.
It's so good,
podcasts.
dude. I played fucking Rock on Island. I'll save it for the GOTY stuff, but holy shit, Rock on Island, the tower defense game in UFO 50. I've perfected every single level except the last one, and it was a real obsession. I just spent like a day playing Rock on Island. It's fucking insanely good.
Is it Rock on Island?
Rock on, it's
rock
like
on?
rock on exclamation point
Okay.
island. Yeah.
So good. Speaking of game of the year, these guys, I think it was Jesse and Frank, or Jesse, somebody suggested it to you, I think, and we
one of our
took the
patrons was
ball.
talking about it in the Discord of doing a community episode of the Game of the Year podcast we do at the end of every year for the last 3. And if if you're a patron and you want to, I don't know if the post is up yet, Danny, but if you're a patron and you want to get in on it, you want to submit your Game of the Year, we're going to take everyone's submissions and rank them all based on the amount of submissions per game to come up with the top 10 or maybe more, we'll see, or fewer, who knows, games of the Noclip patrons.
Yeah, so the way we're going to do this, the post will be up by the time this is up.
Perfect.
Jesse, I'm going to put it up, I believe, on Thursday. So this should be up on Friday. So the way we're going to do this is similar to the way we've done Greatest Hits, which is that basically there'll be a post. We'll keep it up for about 2 weeks. It's for patrons, but that also includes free members. So if it's public, we don't want just people jumping on and voting. We want to keep this in the community. But if you're not a patron of Noclip, you can join up as a free member. It doesn't involve putting in your credit card details or anything. Just as long as you have a Patreon account, you can become a free member. And we do actually have posts on our Patreon that are not public and not just for paid patrons. Every once in a while, we do like updates that are for free members if you're interested. So that's the only way we're going to gate it, just to make sure it's only sort of Noclip family, as it were. So when you go in there, you can either make a post that's like, these are, should we limit it probably to 1 game per person, maybe, or 3 per person? I would say your a stronger vote might be 1, because the way we do it in Greatest Hits is, if somebody doesn't want to put their own down, they can also just like ones that they like.
Okay, that's
if
smart.
Someone else has done it. So it's sort of a weird version of cowboy democracy, where like ones that are early tend to do better because more people see them and more people like them. But fuck it, we'll just do it that way for fun. So yeah, get a comment down, post 1, post 2, post 3. Give us a bit of a detail if you want, bit of color on why it's something you like. We'll include those in the post too, or in the podcast too. Details for this will be on the post as well, so you can just, if you don't want to remember what I'm rambling about now. But yeah, go there. We'll put the link in the description of this podcast. I'll try to get together a tiny URL for next week so we can just point people directly to it. But the Noclip Twitter and Blue Sky accounts will also tweet this out, so you can check it out there. And yeah, we're going to do it. It's going to be after our Game of the Year. So the first week of our Game of the Year podcast will be out in December, where it's us basically picking our top 10. And then what we do after that is we spend the next 3 weeks assigning awards to those games, sort of not just talking about them in terms of knocking them down so our other game can get above them. We've given them all awards. There's 10 of them. There's no number 1. There's just 10 games of the year, and then we're going to give them their specific reward, which is us basically shouting them up for a third of a podcast. And then at the end of that, we're going to do the community one. So that'll be around, I think it's first week of January, 3rd of January or something like that. It'll end up being. So you've got plenty of time. We'll keep the post open for a couple of weeks, and then we'll lock it. Probably just before Game of the Year starts. So that should be fun. We all have to play a bunch of games probably, right? For Game of the Year stuff. I've UFO 50's on mine for sure.
Yeah,
is there anyone that you guys are Yeah, that's the problem. I'm intimidated by that. Is there any ones that you guys are intimidated by?
Dude, Metaphor. Like, I started it. By the way, Frank, this fucking game, dude, I thought it was good from the demo. Holy shit. I got to like the inciting incident, or I assume one of the first 20. And like, when it hits that, it's like, boom. All right, we're playing a different video game, baby. This is peak. But I looked at how long to beat, and I was like, I don't know how the hell I'm going to get to the end of this by December, whatever, 3rd or whenever we record.
Nice. Yeah, that's the big one for me as well. There's a lot of things I'm excited. I like Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. I just haven't had time to get to, and now I have an excuse to do it. So I'm psyched. Metaphor is a sizable meal on the plate, though.
Yeah, I'm hoping someone else can take the hit on that. We're gonna obviously try and get as much coverage as possible, but I wonder who else will play Stalker 2. We'll have to see.
Is that on your list already?
I think it might.
Damn.
I mean, I suspect it might be, just because it's really in the center of my crosshairs of video games I enjoy. So unless they really mess it up, it's probably just going to make it in on that alone.
Did any of you guys play the new Zelda game, Echoes of Wisdom? Yet?
The wife did.
She liked it. What's the verdict? She liked it. Okay,
yeah,
cool. I feel like one of us needs to check it out and see if it is good.
It can be her vote. Actually, no. I think her vote is the Plucky Squire from Devolver and team. That was really good. Devolver didn't make it; they published it. Echoes of Wisdom. It's funny. She has not talked too much about it. I don't think she's beaten it yet. But every time she tells me she did something in it, I'm like, you need to play motherfucking Deus Ex or something. Like it's an immersive sim she described. Like, I made a bed and climbed on this thing, and then I made a rock and I dropped the rock on the thing's head and it got knocked out. Or I possessed this thing which went over here and swung its sword and hit this, which set this off. And I'm like, okay, all right. You ever heard of Dishonored before? You know why I don't shut up about that? Well,
what's it called? Echoes of
Wisdom.
Yeah.
Echoes of
Legend
Wisdom.
of Zelda. Echoes of Wisdom. Yeah.
God,
on the Switch.
I think they used AI to fucking come up with that name.
I'm gonna ask ChatGPT for the name for the next Zelda game. We'll see if it comes up with Echoes of Wisdom.
I have not touched my Switch in a hot minute, so maybe I'll have to check this out. Look at that. All right. Frank, we got some emails before we close this one out?
Yeah, if people want to write us emails, send us an email to podcast@noclip.video or in our Discord chat at Discord channel in the podcast chat. And a quick mention, we did quickly mention it, but we are now on Blue Sky, so I have no idea how they do the URLs. Noclip.bluesky.social, whatever, but you can find us on
Noclip video whatever the default
Sky.
Yeah.
Could we do our own?
Yeah, you can change it to noclip.video.
We can change it to noclip.video, yeah.
It's very easy.
Oh. Could I do Danny.noclip then?
Yeah,
I think
probably.
so.
Sky?
Yeah. You can do
Shit.
Yeah.
Might do
I mean, you have
that.
to buy the domain if there's a .noclip domain, but yeah.
Oh, so it's based on actual domains.
Yeah, you have to assign it to your domain through your host or whoever and add like an address. So it's not too
So would
hard.
that be noclip@noclip.video?
No, it would just be at noclip.video. Because I'm at jessegrasha.com.
Oh, okay. So I could be at DannyO'Dwyer.com.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be Danny at DannyO'Dwyer.com.
Yes.
I would be.
You'd be, you'd just be at DannyO'Dwyer.com. Like at whatever the URL is. Sorry.
I have never sounded older. Let's continue with
You'd be at Danny.video.
It's a mail, but it's electronic.
You've Got Mail guy died last week.
You got mail.
Yeah. They should generate his voice.
Exactly.
How much? What do you think the quality of the voice synth is if you trade it just off of that one
You've
phrase?
got mail.
Yeah.
Just one phrase. Yeah.
It's just off of "You've Got Mail."
Oh, brother.
I feel like
really
a
good
rap
at
song.
you and me sounds.
Yeah.
So it's like
I can't.
You've got a
I don't know
friend
what you can
in
get
me.
out of that. Yeah.
Frank, put us out
Anyway.
of misery.
Sorry.
All right.
Emails? Sorry.
Stephen Camburn wrote to us praising us on podcast 200. They said they loved the 200th pod, appreciate it was a really long episode to debate and curate the 100 games. Couple of questions. One, did you guys all feel mentally exhausted after that podcast?
Yes.
And two, if Sea of Stars was in that list, where would you place it? Top 25 or lower?
Oh, man. Don't make us go back to the list. I've just got over my nightmares from thinking about this.
We're going back.
We've got to go back.
It's going below Diddy Kong Racing. That's all I know, okay?
Top 25
which would make it
was,
not top 25.
Yeah.
Top 25 would mean it has to be better than Warcraft.
No.
I like that game a lot, personally, but
You're a
not
big
that
Sea of
high.
Stars head, right?
Yeah, it's great. I didn't even finish it, but I think it's just great. Just the pixel art's awesome. The music's really good. I like the combat. It gets a little repetitive, but I enjoy it a lot. The world, the characters, it's all really fun. If I was ranking it, I'd probably put it like bottom 50 to 75, like maybe around there, like 70-ish. Probably under Super Mario
70?
Wonder.
70?
Maybe
So you think it's better
73,
than
74?
Is it better than It Takes Two?
No, below that. Below Super Mario Wonder. So like 73.
Oh,
74.
Mario Wonder. Sorry. Okay, so it's better than Shadows of the Empire. Well, no, look, that and Battlefront 2 were getting knocked down every fucking available opportunity. So
Those were the whipping boys of the list.
Infamous. Astrobot has a lot of Infamous stuff in it. That was cool to see. Was it cool to see? I don't know if it was cool to see.
Yeah, you didn't sound very convinced when you said that.
It's cool. Was it cool to see?
You said that like you were as excited as you would be about like taking the bus and seeing like a billboard for an IP that you recognized but didn't love.
Yeah. Oh, I recognize that.
Oh, Cirque du
SpongeBob
Soleil.
billboard?
I know.
Yeah.
I know of that.
Yeah.
Shen Yun. Huh.
Yeah.
no.
Dude, have I ever told you guys I went to see Shen Yun?
Oh,
Did
no.
you?
How'd that
Yeah.
go?
Isn't it like anti-communist or anti-democratic propaganda or something? Or
It's like Chinese, anti-communist, like historical revisionism as far as I
Right,
know.
yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
funded by Falun Gong. I don't know if that's true or
Something
not.
like that, isn't it?
Yeah, or like the news on whatever that like Chinese newspaper is that you see everywhere in San Francisco.
It's like if the Tea Party had like their own like play that was touring China or something.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
My ex-girlfriend's parents got tickets like 12 years ago or something, and I went with them.
Nice.
And
That's when she's
I was
your
very
ex-girlfriend.
high, and it was and then I broke up. I was like, listen, your parents are very anti-communist, and I'm a big G guy, so
Oh, brother.
anyway.
How was it like 4 hours long? Was it like an opera? Was it like super long?
I think it was at least a couple hours. I don't remember. The only thing I really remember from it is that I was very, very stoned, and that they have this thing where at the back of the stage, there's like a gap that they jump into. So people will like run back and disappear off the stage by jumping into a pit. And I found that very entertaining. That was the highlight for me, is that people were disappearing into the, I don't really remember much of it. Not because I was high, just because it was forgettable.
I don't know why I asked the guy who was high a question about perception of time. That was
it was like 2 days or something, man. I don't know, dude. I was there forever.
Was that the other question on that one? Steve,
about Shenyun?
Yeah, just that.
He said if Shenyun was in the top in the 200th podcast.
But they asked if like we felt exhausted, but part of me realized like, I gotta play more. I gotta play more games. There's so much like I want that I got, and that's why part of the retro achievement stuff was like that's literally why I wanted to play the bouncers. I feel like we speculated so much, but I'm like, wait, how is the bouncers? So I don't know. It was a good exercise, but that means I'm training. It's like the Olympics. 4 years from now, or whenever podcast 300 is, I'm playing every game now. That way, it could, we can be prepped for next.
We should
time.
make the list now, so that over the next year or two,
good idea.
we could play all 100 games.
Can I also just say that is the most Frank Howley thing in the world, that we did a list of 100 games and the one that he played was the best.
Dude, the one funny thing, you die so much in that game, and it's you just get vaulted back to the main menu. So every time you die, it's game over, and then it's the bouncer. So playing the bouncer, every time you die, it's the bouncer, and it's like this game. I hate this game, but I'm getting back in there. It's awesome.
It makes me so sad because I've been playing old Squaresoft games from like Final Fantasy VI, Super Mario RPG, Chrono Trigger. Like they had this insane run, and then like a few years later, you're like, wow. Like if I went into a coma in 1997, I'd be like, well, Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy VII, what the fuck is next for these guys? And I would wake up and be like, I gotta play that new Squaresoft game, and the bouncer would be awaiting for me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely that game that's like, yeah, now it's cool to like the bouncer, and I get it.
I'm in.
Finally. Took 20 years, but we made it.
And then August Graham wrote another question. They wrote a question in asking, how does Disco Elysium exist in the minds of each of our hosts? Danny, Frank, Jeremy, and Jesse. Give us the broad strokes regarding why it does or doesn't interest you. I feel like we talk about this game every podcast, but another awesome opportunity. Yeah.
I love this game, man. I think Disco Elysium is just so special. It's the way of telling a story has influenced so many games moving forward. Like the placement of the text on the screen. It's not a particularly new thing, but like the way that it's made it modern and brought it to the attention of a lot of developers is really impressive. But then even outside of its influence, I think it's just one of the most impeccably written games. It's very introspective and also covers a bunch of topics that I feel like games are usually afraid to cover or don't have the grounds to. Like it's don't do that, that's too much, or it's made by people who I don't know necessarily what their perspectives are on life, but who seem to have this
big commies.
Okay, that's one way of putting it. These damn tankies making video games. No, who like have a different political perspective, have a different worldview, and are very into different mediums. They aren't just like into games, and they make games and they play games and that's it. They love art and they love music and plays and all these different ideas. Then that's the kind of games that I love, or come from people typically who have interests that are so out of my own wheelhouse that I get this window into someone's personal joy and love for the world and art. And I see that every time I play Disco Elysium. Of the 3 times I've played it, not all the way through, but like the 3 different times I've played it, just from that angle alone, it exists in the back and the front of my mind quite often.
Yeah. You said it really well. I think that the 2 biggest things for me, other than all of the obvious stuff about it's a great game, it's fun, it's exciting, great characters, is one, that it's influenced by media other than video games. I think that is very, very important. You can feel like political text in there. You can feel like Nick Cave in the Bad Seeds. Like you can feel influences that aren't just like, I mean, there's Planescape Torment in there too, but it's mingled with all of these other things. But the other thing is that it speaks to topics that I think are often touched upon, either I guess like topics like politics especially are often talked about as sort of like in a way that is sort of evangelical or preachy or very reductive. And it's like, this is not a communism good, fascism bad game. It's also not a fascism good, communism bad game. It is here is a entire spectrum of political perspectives, and they all have, like things about them that are failings. And so even though it was a game made by pretty diehard communists, when you meet communists in the game, they're not like, they're very unpragmatic people. They're very idealist. They are sort of have their like 2-person reading group where they just read books. And one of the best lines in closing, one of the best lines that it is that they talk about their Karl Marx analog in the game, Krasmasov. There's a line in one of the perks that when you unlock it is like, it feels as if like his entire mission in life was to to like completely rob you of all joy and prevent you from enjoying your life. And it is a great line that could only be written by someone who had obsessed over Karl Marx long enough to realize that, like, you know, communism is no matter how idealistic you are about it, no matter how much good you see in it, transpose it onto the real world. The ideas of Karl Marx will often leave you very, very burned as an idealist.
I thought you were going to say something else. There was another line that was similar to that, where they talked about someone's writing was basically invented so that two men could sit in a room and debate this. Like,
that's
the reason for some political theories.
It hates on Karl Marx in the way that only someone who loves Karl Marx could do.
Yeah, and it's like, and I think that's one of the reasons that, like, I love this game, because it is such a product of Estonia. It is such a product of a country that, like, has had, you know, where the world, there was a cataclysm where the world was destroyed, right? You know, like overnight, seemingly, you know, the mission was over, and then they were cast into this bizarre cowboy communism era in the 90s. Cowboy capitalism era in the 90s. And that's, what I love about so many games. Like the reason The Witcher is so interesting in its cases of morality and its treatment of life under a war zone is because it's from Poland, and that's the history of that place. And I think, like, politics has become more and more binary in many parts of the world, in my experience, and it was fun to play in the space, not immediately sort of I don't know, the tribalism and whatnot is often not good. And it was cool to see so much of I don't know, just it was like a fun little sandbox, political sandbox, and just music and art, and what a singular, couldn't have been made anywhere else, and wasn't, and probably will never be again. Somebody should make a documentary about that. Speaking of Noclip, Patreon show is up. Go check it out. Updates on a bunch of projects that we're working on. Noclip. I do, of course, talk a little bit about the Half-Life stuff as well, because it did impact us here. We were largely working on that a bunch. Jeremy had our backs for sure, with a bunch of editing going on in the background as well while we were up there filming. And I mean, in fairness, like, we were doing a lot of Valve stuff for the past 6 weeks, and prior to that we were on the road for most of September, so it has been a little bit lean, and Jeremy's been pulling a lot of weight with the Dust 2 doc was the last one that went up as well, and you basically produced that by yourself. It was you and a Korean Starbucks managed to get that on the internet, I think.
I don't rob yourself of credit. You also helped tighten the edit in a big way. So
trimmed it up a little bit is all. But so we're you know, similarly, we've got a bunch of projects coming out. Some have been announced, some haven't been. So keep your eyes peeled for those. The Soul Reaver doc, though, is the one that we are going to be sort of talking about a bunch over the next couple of weeks. It's not a retrospective on Soul Reaver 1 and 2. It is a dissection of their legacy. You know, we do talk to people who worked on those games. We also talk to people who are in the fan community about the process of keeping the legacy of those games alive, pun intended. We do talk about the remaster. We talk about the archive that Crystal Dynamics digitized, which is very cool and part of the sort of Noclip preservation effort, or our ethos as well. And we do talk about the future of Soul Reaver, and the whole documentary is a question of, like, what does it take to remake a game in 2024, to reboot a franchise? You know, in a world that is so different to what it was 25 years ago, where a game, you know, the cost of making a third-person single-player game is just so astronomically different than what it was in the late 90s, adjusted for inflation. So, it should be, hopefully people will dig it. We've been chopping away at this one for, feels like the best part of a year, I think. I don't know. When did we shoot all that stuff for Crystal, Jeremy? That was a while.
I don't know. That was
May or
it was way. It was definitely the first half of this year. Also, are we going to call this documentary "The Legacy of the Legacy of Kane"? Because it seems it seems like a real layup to me.
It's right there.
Yeah.
The legacy of Soul Reaver. It just sounds like we got the name wrong if we do that.
Yeah. Then it's all fucked up.
Curse of the Golden Shower. What is it?
I think that was it.
Support the podcast, fund our documentaries, and get access to all of our bonus episodes in the official Discord over at patreon.com/noclip, or join for free if you would like to vote on our community game of the year. Awesome. That was a 2-hour podcast. I should be belligerent about AI more often. It stretches these fucking.
This is an AI generated podcast. Actually,
It is
belligerent
actually,
about like sandwiches next time or something. Not Subway
exactly.
though. We had enough of that on this podcast. Quiznos.
I fucking love a Subway sandwich. Right?
really? That's
Feed
what you
me.
want? That's
All
what
right.
you're craving?
Well, it's been a great episode. Thanks so much for being here, guys. We'll see you next week.
Brought to you by Subway.
Take it easy.
Bye.